So my name is Jsjc. I'm an associate professor with the Jindal School of Journalism and Communications. I teach, I was journalist for about 10 years, and academic background is in literature and popular culture. I teach cinema. I teach the intersections between news and pop culture, where they meet and how they intersect. And I also look after admissions for JSJC. We've got with us three of our current students, Arnasri, Shardul, and Kannada. What's the food like, if that's something you want to know? Pretty much anything you want to ask. Take the AMA part of this seriously. It's really literally any questions you may have. Go for it. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be about academics. It doesn't have to be about any of that. Just hit us with whatever you want, and I'll primarily, and if you need me to answer anything or add to anything, I'm here to do that as well. So with that, guys, will you just quickly introduce yourselves and then we'll get started? Arnasri?
Yes. Hi guys, I'm Arunashri Maganti and I'm a third year student at Jsjc. Well, a bit about me, I'm from Hyderabad, and in Jindal, I've mostly done a lot of stuff. So if you guys decide to join, I won't be around, but as of now, I'm the president of the student council, and we have two other members as well from the student council. But I play basketball, I read a lot of books, and I dance. If you guys want to ask questions related to any of this, you can always ask me how things are at Jindal and how I engage in things other than academics. But yeah, that's a bit about me. Shardul.
All right. Yes, you can hear me. All right. I'm Shardul. I'm also in my third year at JSJC, and I am the cultural secretary in the student council. Uh, I'm I'm involved with the events I'm supposed to organize and plan all of that. Uh, I'm from Chennai, and Jindal has been like this whole roller coaster ride for me, especially with the whole transition to an online mode of learning. It has been like a whole thing to take in. But I think the best few years of my life has to be the time I spent on campus. So if at all you make it to Jindal, trust me, you're gonna have a good time. Anira?
Hi, I'm Kanira, and I'm from Ahmedabad, and I'm a second year student, Jsjc student, and I'm also the general secretary of the school. I will be there when you guys come, and I'm very excited to meet who all of you join and decide to join Jindal. I've spent very little time on campus, but but I have made a lot of memories there in that little time as well. So you can ask me anything you want.
Right. Thank you, guys. And with that, we'll open it up for questions. You can raise your hand and I'll call on you, or you can type any questions that you have into the message box and we'll just pass it on to whoever I think is best suited for the answer. So while we wait for questions to begin, let me ask the first question. And I think it is a pretty frequently asked question. I certainly get it a lot when I'm talking to prospective students, which is, what exactly does JSJC do? What are you guys getting taught? What are you learning? What is the course like? Let's just start with that, because it's a pretty safe bet that people would want to know about that, not just from sort of comments on a website, but about sort of from a student's perspective. So Arnasri, do you want to take that?
Yes. Yeah, so at JSJC, we learn, well, primarily, of course, we learn about journalism. Is one of the coolest things is that we have our own TV studio and radio studio, which I'm sure all of you have heard about. But actually, we used to spend hours and hours trying to do our assignments in these studios, which is pretty fun, getting to do it with your batchmates, or honestly, we used to just hang around a lot at the studio. But other than that, the course also has subjects like Professor Kajori taught us pop culture, and I think that is one of the great subjects that we've had. Then we have writing. You have writing courses, and well, other than that, you also learn about media and culture, and how media plays a role. You learn like theory about media as well, other than practical application. And the most important thing is that in your second year, you have a chance to pick an elective. So basically, you can study one subject from any other school. So you can really experiment with what you are interested in. You can take up a subject from the law school. You can take up a subject from the government policy school, anything that you like. So the course is quite interdisciplinary. So you get to experiment, you get to study a lot of different things. You get to study politics also at JSJC if you're interested in that. So yeah, it's a pretty great course where you can experiment with what you like.
We have a question from Jagat, whose hand is up. Jagat, go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Jagat this side. Ma'am, I would like to know about about the sports, about football, since I'm really interested in football. So do we have competitions with other colleges or schools, regarding sports like football, basically?
So we have a specific question there about football, but we've also got questions here about extracurriculars in general at Jindal. Arnasri, I know you've played sports for Jindal. So why don't you and Shardul talk about extracurriculars at Jindal and see if you can answer Jagat's question as well as the more general question here.
Okay. Hi, Jagat. So about sports, okay, I played basketball for the university while I was there. And football is also, I mean, of course, you get to go to competitions. We've been to Ashoka, there are fests that you go to outside the state. And in football, you also have, and in all sports for that matter, if anyone else is interested, you also have intra-school competitions. So you have like Jsjc versus JGLS. Then you also have leagues. So it's called J League for football specifically, where you have a whole bidding system where there's team owners. All of this is in Jindal. Okay, so this is for Jindal students in Jindal. So you have team owners who are also students, who are senior students, and they bid on players. So it's something like what happens in IPL. Only thing is without money in reality. So yeah, don't worry about being engaged. It's highly competitive, but it's also really, really fun. So if not for the university team, you can always play matches that are school specific, that's JSJC versus other schools. Then you can always play the J League, and the J League is a huge phenomenon. You'll see students every evening when J League is going on in the football field, like crowded. They're like, students turn out in great numbers to watch the matches. And we also have our annual fest, Magnus, which is amazing. It's a 3-day fest, and we have like universities all over the country who come and play at Jindal. So that is our fest. Yeah. But other than that, you have a lot that'll be happening throughout the year. Shardul, you want to take the extracurricular? Yeah.
All right, okay. So apart from that, like I don't take sports very seriously. I play badminton when I'm bored. That's all I do. And I usually spend time in the gym. That's my thing. Apart from that, should I talk about the clubs? We have a lot of societies in Jindal. There's the dance society, there's theater, there's performing arts. There's a society for pretty much any extracurricular activity that you're involved in. And what's even more better is that if there isn't a society, you can just start one on your own. You have the freedom to do that, and I'm sure there are going to be students who are interested in what you are, and they'll definitely join your club. And you can host your own events regularly, and yeah, you have space to do whatever you want. It's a really liberal space.
Right, thanks guys. Okay, this is a question which I think I'm going to take up. Nena's asking about the procedure through which we select students and decide how a student is best suited for a particular course. I've been doing student interviews now for 3 years, and Sharda, I interviewed you, didn't I? Yeah. So quite honestly, there are just two things that I am looking at in a prospective student. One is how clued in they are on what is happening around them. You can't become any kind of a communicator, a journalist, or in any other field of work if you don't know what's going on around you. So how you don't need to be an expert, but you have to have a vague sense at least of what's happening in the world around you. And that's one of the first things that I check for in an interview that I'm conducting. The second thing that I check for is how passionate you are. I don't particularly care what your passion could be. Sports, it could be cars, it could be technology, but as long as there is something that you're passionate about, we can work with that. But if I am talking to somebody who just doesn't seem particularly like super interested in anything, that's where I personally would start saying, okay, perhaps we need to reconsider if this person is the best fit for the school. Because again, when you're training communicators, the ability to care about something is deeply important, and being able to obviously communicate that is deeply important. We're storytellers, that's what we do. And if I find that a student doesn't have those, most other skills and knowledge we can teach. We can teach you history, we can teach you economics, we can teach you how to edit a story, we can teach you how to write a story, but we can't teach you to read and we can't teach you to care. So as long as you have those qualities, you'll be fine. You'll have a really good chance of getting in, and you'd have a really good chance, I think, of fitting into the school in general. I can very honestly say that some of my best students have been people who've not possibly had the best sort of track record on grades or on paper, but when you spoke to them, they were just so smart and passionate and cool that I was like, yeah, no, this person has to come, and they've done spectacularly well for themselves at JSJC. So that's primarily how we select students. Obviously, we will look at your grades, but mostly we will look at your statement and your interview. That's the primary things that we're looking at. Okay, so the next question is from Akshaj. Do we get an opportunity to take up specialization courses? In a manner of speaking, yes. This is an undergraduate course, so specialization isn't really the focus, but from this year onwards, so from Ernestri and Shardul's year, we have started what are called departmental electives. Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Okay, so departmental electives, we've had them for 2 semesters now. So basically you get to pick, you're given a list of courses, and then you get to pick which course you want. So you have courses from politics to journalism specific to censorship and freedom of media, that again, Professor Kajori taught us. So there will be like a list of courses, and you can choose whatever you want. So you can go with, I went with politics and I took Professor Kajori's course. So yeah, that in a sense is specialization. And you also have your normal electives as well again. If you wish to take up something that is outside what JSJC teaches, you can always do that. Shardul, you want to add anything?
Yes, definitely. I really like the idea of department electives. I wasn't aware of it until I got to choose my department electives, but it really helps you decide what you want to pursue. It also helps you go ahead with your interests. I was particularly interested in like actual reportage, and so I took Uttran's course, Professor Uttran's course, and we have our own Jsjc publication, uh, and I got to work for that, and it was a really good opportunity. I learned so much about it. Yeah, so I think you should definitely think about it when you get an option to choose. Think about it. So it's a good option.
So with a quick follow-up here, I think in response to Ernest talking about Magnus saying, is the fest just for sports? And I think this is an opportunity for you guys to talk about Biswamil and the chaos that follows. Kanara, have you've been for one Biswamil, haven't you? Can you tell us what it was like?
Yeah. Okay, so Besamir was in itself, it's like an entire vibe. Okay, I don't know how to put it into words because there are so many events. There are 3 days filled with joy packed, and I mean there are so many events that are take place. There's an entire, you also get to work as a student, you also get to work with the organizing committee and kind of help them organize the fest, be a part of the outreach committee, logistics. You can be a part of the events committee, you can be there backstage and also perform. You also get an opportunity to perform. Last time there was this entire people who, there are a lot of societies that you have to go through an induction process for the societies, and then they let you perform during their event. Then we also had certain performers also come. We had, I think, Darshan Raval. Was that was he during Besamil? Yeah. Okay. So he also came. So we have a lot of performers as well from outside that we try to get in contact with to perform, and it's like an amazing festival. You guys will love it, and yeah.
Do either of you want to add anything?
I mean, Besamil is probably the best 3 days you'll have ever on campus. It's actually a feeling, and I mean, you as soon as you wake up, like the whole campus is, everyone's like high on energy. Everyone's running around. There's no classes for 3 days. Professors also know it. Every time Professor Kajuri is like, Besamil is happening. No one's gonna attend classes. We know that. It's fine. But yeah, it's honestly, you can dance, you can sing, you can read poetry, you can do whatever. It's a cultural fest. And like the events and competitions start in the morning. 1 second, the events and competitions start in the morning and they go on to like late at night. And like we're partying at like 1 a.m. and there's like concerts happening. I don't remember who came. I think was it Arjun Kanango who came for our first Besamil. But I think yeah, it was he came for one of the fests. I think it was Besamil itself or Magnus, one of those fests. We had Ritviz come for one of the fests while we were there. So it's absolutely great. You'll have a blast. You'll have the time of your life.
Right. Also, how come both of you did not mention bite? Bite also happens during Besamil. You can eat so much, like all like food brands come and sell the products. So you'll have Dunkin' Donuts and you have all kinds of stalls set up. And so I usually spend a lot of time there instead of the actual stage area. So I eat a lot, so I spend my time there. And yes, that's just one thing I wanted to add because I'm very passionate about food.
Thanks, guys. And I'm very amused, Ernestri, that you said that, when we wake up, because I was under the impression that you just never slept. So, okay. Placements and internships. Nandini, so unlike the law school, which the Bar Council makes it necessary for the law to have 2 internships. It's compulsory. There are credits associated with it. We don't have a credit system for internships, but what we do have is an internship cell. Professor Uttaran Dasgupta looks after it right now, and he's looking after, he's got memorandums of understandings, I think, with about 25 different media houses, and we're always trying to increase it. We try, insofar as possible, to place as many of our students for internships. If we can't place them officially, pretty much 75 to 80% of our faculty has been in journalism, in print and television, in various spaces. And we try and, if we feel that the student would be a good fit and that they're interested and passionate, and somehow they didn't manage to make it through the internship processes that the university itself has, we try and get them an internship through people we know in organizations that we are familiar with. Now, placements is a little more complicated, and I'll tell you why. We had a fairly decent lineup for placements in December of 2019 for our first batch, which was graduating in 2020. And then and then the coronavirus pandemic happened. And as all of you, I'm sure, are aware, the pandemic has taken a huge hit on the economy in general and at jobs in general as well. So while we were looking at having an 80 to 90% placement, that number fell quite drastically to about 50%. We are expecting that will reverse itself this year. We already have several positions which have opened up for the outgoing batch, Ernestry and Shardul's batch. And hopefully by the time we hit Kanara's batch, things will have normalized once again. And by the time you guys graduate, we should be able to maximize placements in organizations across India, in different kinds of media spaces, and as closely aligned to your interests as possible. But I'm going to, I know, Shardul, you've done a couple of really good what your internships have looked like.
Right, okay. So internships is very important, like Professor Kajuri mentioned, and getting it is just like how you want to get into college. Like Professor Kajuri said, if you want it and you show the professors that you want it, they will help you out and you will get into good places. I was lucky enough to get into Indian Express. I think even Arunashri interned there. It is still my best internship and the best experience I've had because I got to go out with reporters, and I joined during the peak CAA protest time. So Delhi was just on fire at that time, and I got to run every day. So every day I went to different places, Rohini, and I went to CP, I went to all over the place, and I got to meet new people, interview them, and it's a very good experience. Apart from course, an internship can offer so much more uh, to you, and like you really understand the job of a journalist much better when you're on the field.
Ernestry, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. So, like Shardul said, I also interned with Indian Express, but I was interested in sports. So I interned with the sports desk. And I actually got a chance to run my own story. I got to interview Prashanti Singh, who's a basketball legend, and I got to run that story. But other than that, I also interned with I interned with a podcast platform because helped me get an internship at Suno India. It's an online news podcast platform. Even that was quite an experience. So that was in Hyderabad, from where I'm based out of. So in that way they can also help you with internships all around the country if you have a specific place that you want to be at. So my Indian Express was in Delhi and this one was in Hyderabad. This was for 2 months. So I actually got to cover events in Hyderabad. I covered the CA protests in Hyderabad, and I got to run my own stories in Hyderabad. I got to pitch ideas, and those ideas actually got took up. So that's the best part. So even if you don't get to intern with the biggest names, with smaller names, you always get to run your stories. And I know quite a few of Shardul's stories were also published in the City Beat. I remember this. So yeah, it's a whole experience being in a newsroom. If you intern with I haven't interned with television yet, but it should be great. Even print, you're there in meetings, you're pitching ideas, and it's so much more than actually being out on the field than it's studying in a classroom. You learn so much more though.
Thanks, guys. Kanara, have you had an opportunity to intern?
Okay, I couldn't unmute myself. I have actually not interned a lot, but I've interned back with my dad here. So I mean, that's not actually an internship that I've done.
So again, this year has been difficult for all of us, understandably. So, but I do know that the third years have managed to get a few online internships that they've been doing quite well at. It's been complicated getting people on the field. To answer the question asked by Ankush, how much is, let me just quickly answer Arav's question here, because Shardul and Arnav have already talked about it briefly. We do have internships in various places, including various big media houses. But I think Ernestry is making a really good point there, that the bigger the media, and I've worked with interns when I was a journalist, and quite frankly, the bigger a media house, the less time you have to train an intern. You just like figure it out, and if you do figure it out, good on you. You'll probably get to do a story. If you don't figure it out, you sit in the corner and drink coffee. That's how it works. If you do go to a smaller place, to one of the sort of smaller news houses, and there's some very good ones out there now, then you will get a chance to report, you will get a chance to write articles, you will get the opportunity to do much more hands-on work. And so I think there is value in both kinds of internship. One sort of brands your CV, the other gives you really hands-on experience that you can take forward. Okay, so how much does a journalism graduate get paid? That depends on what you're doing with the degree. Let me be very honest with you. There is no communication space that's going to pay you super well. I mean, you could go into PR and your starting salary would be like 30, 40K. You could go into sort of hardcore journalism and it would be about the same. You're looking at a starting salary of about 30 to 40,000. It's very unlikely that it's going to be above that, no matter what it is that you do. Potentially the numbers could rise as you go up the ranks, but this is not law. This is not medicine. This is not an MBA. This is, unless you choose to do that, which is an option. Going into media management right now is big money. That's where, but you have to understand the industry for that. They're not going to take just a management person for that. Going into things like sports communication, and sports management, so working for things like the IPL, there is significantly more money in those spaces than there is in the more traditional communication spaces. But yeah, it really is, what is it that you want to do, where you go, and how you play the sort of game after you get out. It could range, I would argue, anywhere from between 25 to 30,000 to, if you're going in for sort of branding, marketing kind of work in those communication spaces, probably go up to about 50 to start. So that's just Jagat. In this course, do we get to do field work, like asking and interviewing people? Yes, we do. Ideally, we do. Fieldwork during the pandemic has been difficult, but our students have been doing a really good job of doing interviews online, particularly for their TV and writing courses. Guys, do you want to take this, Ernestry?
Yeah. While we were on campus, we used to go to Delhi to get interviews, to cover stories. We used to interview people on campus to write campus stories. For our radio show, we used to invite people from Delhi to come and be a part of it. We used to interview professors. We used to interview students for our radio shows and writing courses. And as of now, online for our TV course, actually. Because we didn't get a chance to, use the cameras, the equipment, the TV studio on campus, we had to adapt to what we have now. And all of us actually, once things started getting better, we all actually went out and photographed people, and we did short films as well. We did documentary films, 3-minute films of anyone. And the thing is, assignments, because it is in this post-pandemic world, they're much simpler, but you can do it from home. You can find someone that you want to film, and once they agree, you film them, you interview them. And even better thing, we also did a virtual YouTube live. If you guys want to go watch, you should check out the Jsjc YouTube. It's all on there, all our programs, where we interviewed people virtually. So yeah, there's that. That's how we're adapting to this situation. And it's actually quite a cool way to go.
Right. Just adding to that, I'm just going to talk about my experience during the pandemic and how I went out and filmed. So we had this photo essay that we had to do. I mean, the professors will explain what a photo essay is later. It's just that I had to shoot a couple of photos, and I chose a very simple topic. I just chose a local bus stand, and so I just spent like hours together, like multiple days, just sitting there, watching the bus stand and what happens at a bus stand, trying to capture it so that for my essay. And yeah, I published it, and I think that is something that's going to be with me. And like I'm really proud of that assignment, particularly. So it's a very good experience going out on the field and doing your assignments.
Canada, what about you?
Yeah, so we had radio this time that we had to do online, and it was not even post-pandemic; it was during the pandemic. And so there are a lot of online softwares that we were introduced to by our professors, and they showed us how we could take interviews. We took interviews of professors or someone we knew also who were in that field. So that was quite an experience that we had, and we also were introduced to a lot of editing softwares, and that were also open source, which were freely available on net. So we are also trying to adapt. Before that, we had a writing course where we used to go to Delhi, as Arunashi mentioned, wherein we could take interviews, dive in front of them, record them, asking them for their permission, and recording them the interviews. That was also an experience that you guys would love.
Thanks, Canada. Okay, so summer schools. On what basis are students chosen for summer schools and other scholarships for the same? So when it comes to international programs, again, obviously, which has come to a crashing halt with the pandemic, we have two kinds of international programs. We have the summer schools, which are short programs, which obviously occur during the summer. You spend a couple of weeks, anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks at an international university, have access to their lecturers, and get a very sort of quick, short sense of what it is that the entire international environment is currently dealing with. And then you get a certificate and you're sent back. Other is exchange programs, and those are 1 semester long, and those are much more intensive. They're part of your primary academic space. It will count towards your credits, which means you need to pass to graduate, so on and so forth. The summer schools, for both the summer school as well as for the exchange programs, the students are chosen on basis of CGPA. The better you've done in your better grades are, the better your chances of going. They also have to submit a statement of purpose, which is the second stage that we look at to examine whether we think that the summer school is a good fit for you and vice versa. And you can't have any marks on your record. So no disciplinary issues, no unfair means conduct issues, so no cheating, no plagiarism, no beating someone up in a football field, basically. So that's the basic criteria for all of these. Obviously, since more students can go for the summer school, it's much easier to get into a summer school program than it is to get into the exchange program. The exchange program is extremely competitive, and you have to do very, very well to even be considered for it. Also, for the summer school, there are no scholarships available for the summer school. The exchange program, however, is funded. That's mostly a part of your existing because that's how the exchange program works. So you don't usually have to pay for that, but summer schools, however, we try to make it as inexpensive as possible given the experience, but there are no scholarships at the moment for summer schools. Okay, is it possible to intern after the first semester? Yes, Achal, it is not only possible, it is encouraged. And there are very much internships for television and media houses. I have personally placed a lot of our students in NDTV as well as in CNN News 18, which is where I've worked for most of my career. We've also had students who've worked with BBC television. We've had students who've worked with India Today. We've had students who've worked with various different television houses. And yes, with media production houses as well. We are in the process of creating more MOUs with media production houses so that there can be on-hand experience as far as filming is concerned. Nana, PR is public relations, and public relations is basically creating communication campaigns for different spaces. It's literally publicizing corporates and doing publicity campaigns for different spaces. So a PR representative works for a PR house, which gets clients and then represents their clients in creating a full-blown campaign for them. Is there any encouragement for debating and public speaking? Guys, do you feel that you are encouraged in talking in general? Which one of you wants to take this first? Okay, Shardul.
Right. Okay. So I've been cultural secretary for the last 1 year, and uh, I've actually hosted a couple of discussion nights and invited students to come and talk about a particular topic. Because usually in class too, we do discuss, but given the fact that we might have to finish a certain course in a given time, we might not get to really express our opinions entirely, and that is why we have these discussion nights regularly, so that students can come and talk freely for however long they want. So I think we do have a space where we encourage students to uh, voice out their opinions. Now you can carry on.
Outside of JSJC, there is a debate society. If you are really into debating, they have debate nights actually that you can go and debate. Other than that, a lot of our courses are also primarily like the way they're structured is that they're discussion based. So like your core, you are encouraged to speak in class, and like the way classes happen, it's not like in school where a teacher comes, they say XYZ, and then they leave and that's the end. That's not how it works. It's that we actually learn to like think for ourselves, and most of it what you're studying you will have to discuss. Like it's journalism, right? You can't not participate in class. So we have discussions. For example, in Professor Kajuri's freedom of expression course, she used to ask us to give our own examples, and that's when we would really get into it and actually debate anything. And given I think that's it. But yeah, you are definitely encouraged to speak in class, outside class. And Jindal as a community itself, we're all very vocal. So if you want to, it's the best.
Kanara?
Yeah, so again, I was also going to say the same thing, that we have freedom of expression this time, and Professor Kajori keeps on, gives us prompts, gives us questions that kind of does engage us and makes us want to put out our opinions. And you will have several opportunities to speak your mind, say whatever you feel about the situation, and all these prompts will actually make you think about what you actually were trying to say.
So just to quickly talk about another thing that we're going to be doing, hopefully from the next semester onwards. Unfortunately, we couldn't manage it for Arnasri and Shardul's batch, is we are going to have official studio training as well as a part of the television course. We do have a full-fledged TV studio. I was a news anchor for 8 years of my 10 years in journalism, and understanding how to use a studio space, perform in a studio space, work on just somebody yelling in your ear constantly, because take it from me, that is not fun. Those are just habits that you do need to develop, and we will be organizing training for that as a part of your larger television training. So yes, you will be encouraged to speak in those settings as well. Okay. Let's see what we have now. Yes. Okay. What is the international exposure like at JSJC? Well, we've talked briefly about the summer school and the exchange programs. We also, almost all of our professors have at some point or the other studied abroad. There's a lot of international experience and knowledge that we're bringing to the table. And we're getting guest speakers from all over the world constantly. Like our dean, of course, is from the US, and when we organize events, when we organize speakers, it's some of the top academics, journalists, lawyers from across the world. So you will have the opportunity to listen to them and learn from them. Ernestri, I'm going to toss this one to you. Sorry, guys. As you know, technology loves nobody, and inevitably the internet will exists to ruin your life. So let's pick up where we stopped off, and let me see if the chat is going to give me the necessary information that we need. So what questions do we have now? And now does not want me to see the chat. Wonderful. Guys, if I've missed your questions, can you just quickly ask those questions again? All right, so we've got Arav's question, which we were taking up, which was about sports journalism. And Arunasri, I was about to pass that to you, saying, you mentioned you were interested in sports and you'd worked on sports internships. So if you just take that. Can you take it?
Yes. I don't want to pursue sports journalism per se, but I did do a sports internship at the Indian Express. So while I was interning there, there was the World Cup going on. So we didn't have much local news. We only had the World Cup and only the World Cup. But other than that, what you do get to do is if there are local matches happening anywhere, like if there's the ISL happening, you'll go and you'll report on it and you'll come back. And then you can do like really cool, interesting stories about like aspiring sports people. So I once also did a story on this 11-year-old girl who was the fastest, who I think was from Rohini and who actually became the fastest runner for India and is planning to run for the Olympics, which was supposed to happen. So yeah, it's quite similar to what would be normal journalism. So you do go out, you do get stories, you get the stories of like individual people. Then there's also the really breaking news kind of reporting where you're reporting, the score, you're updating the score every second, or there's a wicket that goes and that could affect the match. And then you quickly write a story in 15 minutes about, okay, this is how the match could go. So as a sports journalist, that's what you will be doing. So it depends on your beat. So if you have a city beat, then you'll be covering city stories, whatever's happening in the city. In the sports beat as well. And then if there's huge matches happening, like the World Cup was happening, someone was assigned specifically to the World Cup to keep updating what's happening and let's say why India needs the next win. That could be your next day's story. Or why did India lose the previous day's match? That will be your next day's story. So it's pretty similar to journalism itself, but yeah, you definitely should be able to pursue sports journalism.
Right. How did you guys know that you wanted to be here in this field? Shardul, let's start with you and we'll just work.
Well, I didn't know if I wanted to do journalism exactly. I I mean, I wouldn't say I took a chance. It's just that I felt like out of all the options I had in front of me, journalism was the one that seemed interesting to me, and especially you know, uh, being a humanities student, I didn't really know where to go after school. So I just took a chance and I just came to JGU, took up journalism, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. After my first semester, I kind of really liked this course and didn't ever feel like I had to leave this place. It was a good degree. I think what I mean to say is that you will find your place. You will find a reason to like journalism, or you'll find a reason to stay in this course because there is so much that you will learn. So it's really good. Don't worry if you're freaking out about whether this is your course or not. Take a chance. You'll find something.
Okay, I always loved communicating, and that's what kind of motivated me to take up journalism. Like I always love to talk. Out of the blue, if I had to convey something, I always love that. So I think that was like my starting point, wherein I thought, okay, I could go into media as a field, and then when I narrowed it down, I said, okay, fine, I want to. I also like being on. You talk, I mean, the entire communicating part of it. So that is the reason why I took journalism, and I'm learning every single day a new thing and a new aspect of journalism in this school. So that kind of keeps me more motivated, and keeps me going and makes me want to do journalism after this as well.
So we've got a question here, which is asking if this course is flexible and can you go into fields other than journalism after graduation? Yes. That's specifically how this course has been designed. While we are a journalism school that focuses specifically on journalism, as far as our training is concerned, it's also very important, I think, to realize that journalism is intensely interdisciplinary profession. You can't be a good journalist without knowing a little bit of something about pretty much everything out there. So a little bit of history, politics, economics, popular culture, obviously the technical skills of radio and video, editing, how to shoot, all of these things. We are here to give you enough of a background on all of these subjects that you can, if you so choose, pursue them later. Students who've gone on to master's degree in politics, in international relations, in cinema studies, in gender studies, in all of these spaces. And so all of these are definitely open to you. Spaces like, as I said, media management, sports management, management spaces of different kinds, law. As I said, as has been mentioned, I teach a freedom of expression course. Today, one of the most important questions in front of the world, of the country, is about things like OTT platforms, what's being allowed on them, what's not. Being a lawyer who understands how the industry works, we need it today more than possibly ever before. So yes, there are multiple options that you can go on to after you've got this degree, but this degree is there to give you just a really strong grounding on the world around you and how to talk about and communicate the world around you. So Jagat, can you experience war journalism after your courses? Do you get to cover and work in places like Syria and Lebanon? Not immediately, because nobody is going to send a journalist who has no experience on any kind of journalism into Syria, quite frankly. You wouldn't do it anywhere in the world. What you do is so I have friends who are now living in Lebanon, who are reporting out of there, who used to be with me in NDTV and places like that. You have to earn that place. Go work on your city beat, go work on a crime beat, go work on defense beats within your own country. Understand how these spaces work. But you can eventually, yes, get to cover conflict zones, conflict areas. You start off covering conflict areas in your own country and then move on to covering them in other places. How would an honors course at Jindal be different BA in media and journalism in other institutes? I'm not putting down media courses anywhere else. There are incredible universities which offer incredible courses doing very good work. I do, however, find that one of the problems, and because we've worked with interns from a lot of places, from Symbiosis, from Amity, from all of these places. And one of the problems as a journalist that I found was that while they were very good, very, very good at most of the technical aspects, it was very difficult for me to put them on a story because they just didn't understand how fieldwork worked. They didn't know they didn't understand how research worked. So if I put them on editing a story, they were fantastic. If I put them on shooting a story, they were fantastic. If I asked them to present a piece of news, they were great. But if I asked them to research something or put a storyboard together or any of those things, suddenly I found that they were much more shaky. And the reason they were much more shaky is because most media courses don't focus on giving you that liberal arts grounding. And most of us, so journalists of the last generation, if you will, we didn't have a background in journalism. We picked up these skills as we went along in the profession itself. The reason we've constructed, and all of the professors here, the reason we've constructed this course in this specific way is because we want you to be able to put together both the technical aspect and the sort of humanities aspect, if you will, on the same page, and be able to know where to look, how to put material together, and then how to put it out there. And it is, I would say, what is unique about our course is that it follows this pattern of looking at communication as a larger spectrum rather than looking at it as a purely technical skill. I would argue that's how it's different, but I don't know what the students would say, how they've experienced it. Arnasri?
Hello. Yes, Professor, can you just repeat once?
I was saying that, how do you think that this course is different? Because you guys must have done your research as well before joining, is different from the other journalism courses, some of which are really, really good as well.
Well, for me, I think the key factor was that it was at Jindal. Because, and the second really important factor was the electives. So when I took up journalism, I really wasn't sure. I was a science student and I knew I didn't want to do science, that was for sure. But other than that, I did not know what I wanted to do. I just enjoyed reading and I enjoyed writing, so I went for it. And I think a big part of what JSJC has to offer is also what Jindal has to offer. The kind of talks that you have on campus that you can attend, and the kind of people that you meet on campus, your professors. I think, yes, professors was a very big. All of our professors, most of our professors are journalists, and they have been, and they've been in the field for years. So, and we also have professors who are currently working as journalists. So you get very direct exposure to what journalism actually is, which was why I chose JSJC, and which is why I think it makes it much better than any other course.
Shardul, do you want to add to that?
No, ma'am. I mean, I just say that, the practical, I mean, you get to work on the field and a lot of practical knowledge. I think that really helps. Working in radio studio, TV studio, it can really help you. I think that's all I want to say.
We have a question here that interests me, and actually I'm not going to answer this. I'm just going to leave it to you guys to answer this. Are students encouraged to be political regarding their write-ups and discussion, or is it encouraged to walk along safer lines? Who wants to take this? All right, Ernestri.
Okay. Well, it's, to put it blatantly, it's up to you what you want to do. No one's gonna judge you if you decide to go completely political. Well, encouraged. Our class discussions do tend to get extremely political. So when we're talking about the freedom of media, of course, that we're talking about. When we're talking about how the OTT platforms have been regulated, you will get political. And trust me, no professor will ever tell you that, oh, don't say this. That's not going to happen. For sure, you can speak your mind, and personally, I think classes get very intense when it gets political, and that's fun. I personally really enjoy classes when they get super political. And if it is a course on politics, then of course you're going to discuss politics, and it tends to come up. As a journalist, politics is a key part of what you're going to be covering and reading. So it will come up time and again, and you are encouraged to put your opinions forward at every point, whatever it may be.
Shardul?
But it's a tricky thing because we also learn that you can't give your opinions in your reports. So you should try and be objective there. But you're always encouraged to have an opinion and share it in places other than probably where you're not required to or we're not supposed to as a rule. But you can have an opinion. You can have discussions. Most of our discussion nights are based on politics, and we even had courses. We had a course on we called political debate, and it was really interesting. So you can be political.
Canada?
I think, yeah, our discussion nights are extremely opinionated, and everyone loves expressing their views. And other than that, our classes also, we are encouraged to say and speak our minds. So every single place, I mean, it does get political. It's up to you.
It is up to you. I think that's the point. We're not going to force you, but we would like you to think about the world you're living in. I personally, for example, believe that everything is political, and that you can't live in a world and not be political. So I would very much encourage being political and not walk safer lines. But if you don't want to, that's fine. Not everybody has to do that. And we let you find your own path. That's what journalism and communications really is all about. We're going to take the last question, and then we're going to let you guys go. Is it possible to go into, is it possible to do economics and go into journalism later? Yes, 100%. That with backgrounds in all kinds of subjects, history, political science. One of our professors is in engineering. It doesn't really matter. But today, that's getting more difficult because you will be at a disadvantage versus people who've come in with a training in how to